Well, now that Elon Musk owns Twitter, some people are worried that this deal, well, it could open up the floodgates to Chinese influence over what we're calling the proverbial town square.
Fellow billionaire Jeff Bezos has some questions about how China will fit in, too, when the Twitter deal is sealed. Here to discuss is Policy Director for the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard. Rachel, welcome to the show. So is Jeff Bezos just being a bit bitter and maybe jealous, or is there some actual genuine concern with Elon Musk and China and Twitter?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to take any criticism from Jeff Bezos on Chinese entanglement seriously. Like, are you kidding me? This is the guy who, bans books at will, but happily went into a propaganda effort with the Chinese president, banned any comments about his book of speeches, routinely, his platform is littered with Chinese goods. I mean, this is a man his platform is entirely entangled with China. Now, that being said, it is
but that's my concern, Rachel. He's speaking from experience.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He knows what Elon's about to get into. But, that being said, the question is valid, I think, for Elon Musk. We know he is also pretty entangled in China through his other business ventures, specifically Tesla. So I think it is a completely valid line of questioning. Will that impact, Twitter as a speech platform? We know China uses Twitter. China has plenty of bots. Its state actors are on Twitter constantly. So what's the playbook going to be? Are there going to be walls put in place, that sort of guide how Musk acts in this regard? Or is he going to be influenced by what China could do in retribution to Tesla, where he also seeks to make a profit?
Yeah, look, it has to be a fair question because the model for, for many CEOs, major businesses, when they get pushed by China, when China says, hey, you have to do this, they generally, universally have folded, have given censors in the authoritarian Communist Party of China exactly what they want. Now, look, I respect Elon Musk greatly. I like the vision that he has articulated for Twitter. I am interested to see him try to implement it, and maybe he is more ideologically committed to resisting that kind of thing. I certainly think it's a good thing he said that, and he should be held accountable. He should be made to keep that promise by his supporters and his fans, etc. But it has to be, given how easily everyone else has folded, it has to be at least something discussed. The possible concern that China could end up influencing, because of his, need to have access to their markets, could influence things, because that's been the norm. That's what has happened in every other case.
Yeah, this is a problem, that's not unique to Twitter. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be talking about it. We absolutely should be. But every major tech platform, from Google on down to Amazon to Facebook, has a Chinese problem. They all want access to the market. Apple infamously, signed this 5-year memorandum of understanding with China to help them develop superior technology, right, to get into the market. Right. So this is across, our major tech platforms. This is not just unique to Twitter. But that said, Musk has staked out a position where he said, I'm for free speech. I don't even care about the economics of Twitter. I want to make it more, more of a home to free discourse. Well, if that's the case, then you actually do have to, I think, put down clear parameters about how you're going to handle China's influence. And, we know foreign influence on Twitter is a thing. I think we all learned during this Elon Musk drama that the Saudi government had a pretty big stake in Twitter as well. And that's sort of disconcerting in addition. So this is something I think we actually need to have a public conversation about. And if Elon Musk's taking over Twitter as the proxy for that conversation, then so be it.
Although Elon Musk is in an interesting position, he's in a very unique position when it comes to China because his Tesla factory is actually the only 100% American-owned factory inside the country of China. Everyone else has to do this sort of contract where China owns, half of the company or half of the manufacturing, and the other automaker, like BMW, for example, they have to partner with the Chinese company and then they manufacture it and whatnot. So Tesla has an incredibly unique deal with China that is unlike any other company inside of China, any other foreign company inside of China. So one of the reasons why so many of the other companies seem to cater so much to China, I've seen this with Facebook, I see it with Google, see it with Amazon, right? I see it with all these companies. They're trying to get into that China market. They're trying to break through. So they are willing to make some concessions. They weren't for a long time, though. If you remember, Google and Facebook were saying, we don't censor, we're American companies. And this is when China then started cutting them out. This was like in maybe late 2010, to early, 12, 13. And they were cutting them out because China said, if you're going to be in our market, you have to censor. And then these American companies said, well, we don't do that because we're American. And then slowly over the last decade, you've seen them start to shift that mentality and start to say, well, okay, we're willing to maybe censor a little bit more. And one of my big suspicions is the reason why they've been willing to censor so much, not because only because of American politicians pressuring them and American public pressuring them, but also their desire financially to get into the China market and to show them, hey, yeah, we're willing to do some censoring now. But Tesla's in a completely unique situation there. So if anything, Elon Musk is in a more powerful position to take on China because they don't own his factory at all. I mean, do you think that that's potentially some protection?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, let's not forget, these companies planted the American flag until Google was busted by its own employees building a censored search engine for China. So I think overall, profits do trump ideology in a lot of these cases. And I think at the end of the day, that's the question for Tesla as well, that, Musk may own outright his companies in China, but he said a lot of favorable things about the Chinese regime. He does want to make money in China with Tesla. And so China, unlike, any other regulatory hurdle here in the United States, China could, is an authoritarian regime. It could very easily punish a business that's operating within its borders. It already has ridiculous laws about, what companies operating in China are forced to turn over to the government. So they have levers available to them, I think, that are outside, obviously, of what we have here in a free and democratic United States. So this is a question I think he has to answer, because again, it's not just that he makes money overseas in China. He has said very favorable things, and he could put these concerns to rest. I think this is the issue. There's so many unknowns, right? Mm-hmm. So many things we don't know about what a Musk regime at Twitter will look like. He can begin to answer those questions, and I think this has to be one among them. How are you going to separate your obvious business interests in Beijing with how you operate a free speech platform that he himself has said, plays an outsized role in free discourse in the United States? Because in my mind, at least watching the other tech giants, they haven't been able to do it. So how is he going to do it differently?
Right.
I think the one big thing is that the reason why China was willing to give Elon such a special deal is because they need him more than he needs them. And that is a very unique position to be in going up against Beijing. But Robbie, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, we're talking about fears of Chinese influence on social media sites. Yeah, I said this in my radar. Twitter is a smaller social media site than many, certainly a smaller social media site than TikTok, which is now this utterly dominating site that actually is much more
China,
in direct,
right?
obvious ways Chinese influenced. Like, that is the concern, right? And I tend to take on a lot of these tech questions. I tend to take a less pessimistic position than many on the right and the left. But I have a lot of concern about TikTok. It's so well beyond our control, even compared to Google or Facebook or Twitter. And it is the most popular one of all among the next generation. It's now a more visited website than Google is. So there, between all this kind of mutual pointing fingers between Bezos and Elon Musk, well, wait a minute, what about TikTok, right?
Yeah. What about the actual Chinese PSYOP that we have running as a very popular social media platform? No, I think this is the conversation that, at least some of us on the right have been trying to have, in the sense of, Chinese influence over all these platforms. And if Musk is the thing that kicks it off, okay, fine. But yes, you're absolutely right. This isn't just a Twitter problem. We have to be talking about this across the platforms. And, the Trump administration, I think, tried, or at least identified the issue with TikTok, but didn't successfully deal with it. How are we going to deal with this going forward? Because at the end of the day, the influence of China on the United States is not necessarily state actor versus state actor. It's China using our market forces. It's China using our private enterprise to, influence political discourse, to kind of change our markets, to go after, whatever their end game is. That's something that we as public, in public policy have not dealt with. We don't have a plan for that. So this is something I think needs to kick off a more national conversation about how we deal with that, from TikTok to Huawei on down. It's just something that, we haven't been prepared to handle.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm definitely also very alarmed with, their ability. It's just because they've taken advantage of our hyper-capitalist free market system, and they're able to come in and buy up whatever they want because we have a nation for sale and we even have politicians for sale. They operate very differently. We're mad that we can't go and do the same thing to them. And they say, well, our rules are different, but we're just playing by your rules. And that is something I think we do have to discuss, is maybe we need to change some of our rules a little bit, make it a little bit tougher. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's something we just haven't, Trump kicked off the conversation. There hasn't been a sort of policy response to it. I think it's time for that to happen.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Well, right, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll have more Rising after this.